Yes, here we go. It's the P.M.P after the fifth game in the Champions League, and Celtic are out of the Champions League, out of Europe altogether for season 23-24. It's not quite what we've been hoping we'd appointed Brendan Rodgers for in the summer. Just very disappointing. A few things that we've obviously covered quite often on the bus. Terry can't make it tonight. She just landed with me, unfortunately. We will do a wee sort of deeper dive, I'm sure, either tomorrow night or Thursday. Where do you begin? On a footballing level, I mean, I appreciate what Brendan was saying before the game, because it seems to be the same that Postecoglou said as well, that, when we play these games, it's important that we play the way we want to play and we keep our identity and all this sort of bollocks, you know what I mean? I would much rather, when the side hasn't been strengthened anywhere near enough for the Champions League. Now, if I know it and you know it, then I'd like to think Brendan Rodgers knows it as well. Why play the same? What is it with these managers now? Like, well, let's just play the exact same style. Admittedly, by the way, we were actually good in spells tonight for what it's worth. I think that's more of a reflection, to be honest with you, on how shite Lazio are. If I'm being brutally honest on it, but yeah, I just feel it really frustrates me that if we've not got the players, and undeniably we've not tooled up for the Champions League, then why the hell would you still just play your own game? Why can't the philosophy of a team now be winning? And there's many ways to skin a cat. Celtic don't seem, to me, for whatever reason, capable of playing more than one system in the one season. We don't seem able to vary it up even at home domestically. We seem very reluctant to play two strikers. In Europe, we seem very reluctant to play anything that looks that wee bit more robust and tighter. Today being slightly less of a strong example of that, but albeit Paul Mellor comes in there and he's spot on. I mean, he's saying we've conceded 2+ goals in all 5 games. You don't know many in Europe doing that. He's bang on. This is the reality. Even if you think we did look a wee bit tighter today, still conceded 2 goals. And then you get to the Celtic stuff, for want of a better term, right? And it's like fucking bullshit. Like, we lose a goal, you can guarantee within the next 5 minutes we'll concede another. It happens all the time. I'm sick of seeing that movie, and I can't put my finger. I can't put my finger on why that continually seems to be such a trait of Celtic, whether it be Rodgers Celtic or various other managers Celtic. It's so fucking annoying. Then you've got the situation where you've got a team that is now 15 games, I think it is, without a win in Europe. Something like that. I think when you look at that record, I bet you any money any other team with that record or a similar record in Europe does then off the field not have the luxury of £72 million sitting cash. They just don't. They don't have it. Yet we find ourselves in this bizarre situation where that cash has been accumulating, building, being scrimped and saved in every possible angle. I just don't get it. I don't get it. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the comments. Pato, I like it when folk disagree. Let's bring up somebody who disagrees. He says, this is what BR was brought in for. He was abysmal in Europe with Leicester, Liverpool and Celtic in his first spell. Fine if you think BR came in to win the league, but he didn't come in to do well in Europe. Well, I don't know. I'd have thought he was brought in. I mean, he's the highest paid manager in our history. Again, I would have thought that would have led to some sort of focus on European success, Pato. It's up to you. But I mean, when we've got a squad like that in the Champions League, we had today, and we've got to be honest. When you looked at the bench, you thought, wow. When you looked at the wingers that were starting, I appreciate there's been injuries, by the way. That's the way it goes as well. We've got to be honest on that. But fuck me, it just doesn't feel like there's enough like-for-like ability when Brendan's trying to change a game. There's nothing like a player coming off and being replaced by someone that you feel is of a similar quality. It feels like out with the first sort of 11, 12, 13 maybe max players, there's then like this sort of drop off, and we've just got to accept it. Cool Daddy says it's not the money, it's the league. Name one 20 million player who's desperate to play in the Farmers League pitch in pish weather. I mean, Cool Daddy, what do you want me to say to that, mate? Like, nobody's saying buy a 20 million player. You've just jumped to 20 million. If you want to be, have a reasonable sort of pushback on the debate, big boy, Celtic's record outgoing, I think this summer was about €4.5 million in Palma. It's a hell of a lot of, of disparity there between that and £20 million. I think we need to get real here. There's a huge amount of wiggle room where Celtic could be a bit more aggressive and spend a bit more on each individual player than what they currently have, without it jumping to 20 million players desperate to play in a Farmers League with pish weather. It's just silly. It's a silly argument. And by the way, there will be players that want to come to Celtic. The money would talk if you're going to be paying realistic wages, not paying the same wages you were 23 years ago. If you want to blame things like the weather, like the league, then you tell me how we've had good players in the past, and I'll rest my case there. These are, the weather and stuff like that is one aspect of it. But if you think there is not a better level of player that Celtic could have attracted in the summer there, I think the board will be very, very happy with that argument. I definitely will take your point on board, Cool Daddy, but I certainly don't, I'm afraid, big boy. But that's what it's all about in the bus. We can all agree to disagree and all that carry on, but not having that, mate. I don't think it's the weather. But as I say, I am sure right now, if Michael Nicholson's really, really bold and is watching this, he'll be sitting there going, the weather. Remember that one for the next AGM as well, Mr. Lowell. Tal, they'll be writing that down right now. It says name a player and state a postcode. You're being a bit pedantic now, Cool Daddy. I don't do like scouting around the world for players and things like that. It's ridiculous. So I think your argument's a bit foolish if you don't think there's better players out there that Celtic could get than what they did get. I think it's just fact, isn't it? Without me going through a fake scouting network that I've not done. Let's get real. But yeah, listen, we'll put it down to the weather, mate. We'll put it down to the weather. But yeah, I think enough of that. When you look at the performance tonight, even when we've played reasonably well in spells, I thought actually, even when we're on the ball, some of the passing looked good at times. Forrest is still a bit negative. But again, he's not probably meant to start. You've no Palma, no Maeda. He's got to bring other folk in. I get that as well. But despite it being okay at times, how many of you really thought we were going to get a goal? That's one aspect to it. How many of you thought we would concede not just one tonight, but if we conceded one, we would probably concede two? I think that's the problem. A lot of the stuff that we're seeing in the Champions League, we have definitely seen before. We don't seem to learn from those mistakes, and I suppose why would we learn from the mistakes if someone like a Pato, who was in the chat earlier, is spot on and says, look, Rodgers has only been brought in to do what we know he is very good at, and that's keep the domestic players going. If that's the case, then the European side of things has went kind of par for the course, and that's why we keep saying the same movie in Europe. But I don't know. From my point of view, anyway, I think the manager, if he doesn't feel like he's got the best options, and I'm sure as much as he respects Forrest's career, and we'll use Forrest as an example, as much as you respect what he's done in a Celtic jersey, and we expect the career respect the career he's had and things, I think when you're starting him at 32, 33 years old, 32, I think, when he's not been a Celtic regular for a good couple of years now, let alone in any sort of form. I think when you're starting him away in a must-win, and that's what this was today, by the way. I know this is how conditioned we are not to even want to compete in Europe, by the way. It's even saying that on a different note. Tonight was a must-win game. Who went into that with the mindset of, really need to win this tonight, right? Massive opportunity to stay in Europe. I don't think anyone really watches it thinking like that, even myself included. We spoke about apathy a few weeks ago. I wouldn't say it's apathy, but I still didn't have the same sort of appetite, excitement, nerves. In fact, no nerves at all going into the game tonight would be more accurate. You know, like most must-win games Celtic go into, sort of make me feel. That tells you, you know, that you're not expecting anything from it. But when you are starting players like, say, Forrest, or maybe like, I think Greg Taylor maybe at the back, we picking on the Scottish lads, maybe. You just wonder then, well, what did you do over the summer, Brendan, to shake it up? When you came in and you were given the job, I mean, when you were given the job, what is it you viewed? He said he watched nearly every game. I know that was probably just a bit of a throwaway line. But see if he'd put in like the amount of hours he was making out that he'd watched Celtic, he would have known the areas that there needed to be strengthened. He'd have known the type of player he needed. And then when we see them all foisted upon him sort of thing, and him sort of just saying, oh, well, they picked the player and I'm quite happy with it. He's kind of reaping what he's sown as well now. You know, that's why I didn't have the best options out there. 420 somewhere gifting out a wee membership there. Nice one, pal. Yeah, John Kerr, some did, boys. He's still 6 to play for. Well, this is the thing. I mean, I just didn't go into the game with that same nervous excitement. This is the frustrating bit. I wish I did, but I didn't have that same nervous excitement, if I'm being honest. I didn't feel like we were going to get a goal. We got to the penalty towards the end. Obviously, Immobile, how do you say his name? Immobile, something like that. Immobile. That sounds a wee bit better. I mean, he comes off the bench, puts us to the sword, and then again, we get what looks like a penalty situation. We don't even get them going our favour. I've got to be honest, I didn't think it was a penalty. And now it does sound like you're paranoid, but I think it probably would have went for them if that had went against us. I think they'd have given it, if I'm being honest. I don't think they would have went to the effort of overturning it. So that was an interesting one. But in the live chat here, we've got AR coming in. Good to have you on the bus, mate. And he's saying, "Oh, diving and all that infuriates me." Oh, does throw himself about a bit. He's trying to win decisions. I don't think there's any doubt about that at times. I think he comes on the park quite often, whether it's in the box or not. He's trying to buy fouls. He's trying to get Celtic up the park. It's a part of his game that I think he could work on. I think you want to get to the stage where you've got a record like Big Sutty did, and that was, I remember, at least one season, I know for a fact. I know for a fact that there was one season he was the most fouled and like the highest fouler, if that makes sense. So he committed the most fouls and had the most fouls given against him in one season. Now, that's been quite effective at doing that role. Do you know what I mean? Brown comes in. This is interesting. He says we should have spent some of that 70 million and invested in a manager who's tactically aware for Europe. You know, someone with a proven track record in the Champions League or the Europa League. It's interesting. If Pato's right, though, Brown, and the main reason they wanted Rodgers in was because if he wins the league, the likelihood is, not a guarantee as many are saying, but the strong likelihood is we go straight into the Champions League again next year, and it's like the money's going to bump up because there's like more teams in it, more fixtures for a couple more fixtures, and the prize money, I think, jumps up again anyway. I mean, if that's the case, that's what these fuckers do, and you totally can understand it. But when you say more tactical away for Europe, I mean, like, Van Bronckhorst, they don't come with guarantees domestically. That's the problem. And I think, see, to be honest with you, I've said this before, and I'm not turning on other fans or any of that nonsense, although a few did on me at the weekend on Twitter. That was good. But like, the thing is, I think 6 months down the line, we'll be in May. Roger said he'll see us in May. He's preempting what will happen. Say we win the league and the cup in May, Brown. I think everyone will be quite happy with that. And the Europe stuff, whatever frustrations you have right now, whatever upset that you've got right now about European football, as a fan base, I think we kind of tend to get quite selective with our memory of a season, and we'll just focus on the good stuff. And before you know it, Alistair Johnson will be a £20 million player again. You know, Matt O'Reilly will be about 50 million, and etc. etc. And we'll be inflating all these guys to crazy levels because of the domestic bliss that we find ourselves in 6 months' time. That's just one of the other problems. So it kind of takes the light from being shone on what the board are going to do. It does tend to sort of that torch be either turned off altogether or shone in a different direction by the time the summer comes around. And that sort of thing frustrates me, because I think we could have done more in the last few windows than what we actually have. And I think with the money sitting there, and then you see the European performances the last two seasons being out. Last year, what did we get last year? 2 points in the Champions League. Did we get 2? And we've got 1 this year, and it's a dead rubber against Feyenoord. If we win, that'll say, we got double the points of last year. That is progress. But 3 of those will have came in a game that means absolutely fucking nothing to us. So there's been real disappointment, I think, as a European force. Bodo Glimt had put us out the year before that, if you remember, because of how we'd done in the Europa League and the Champions League qualifier against Midtjylland as well. I mean, the last 3 seasons, Europe's just been shit. Let's just tell the truth. It's been flashes here and there. I mean, real rare flashes now, though. Flashes used to be like big results. Now flashes are like... Then flashes sort of became right good sort of performances, but maybe not the result that we deserved. Now the flashes are... I think... The flashes are like, you know, moments in games that we maybe like we strung 10 passes together and that and looked an okay side. I still think they're arguing about the weather in the chat. I think it's clutching at straws. I've got to be honest that we can't sign anyone better than we currently have because of the weather. I'd park that argument. Like, I think it sounds stupid. There doesn't need to be world beaters that you're signing, but there's levels that are better than what we've currently got. That's a guarantee that would come at Celtic. Anyway, not just with that. When you're looking at tactically aware for Europe, does the guarantee of success in Europe, Brown, is so difficult to pinpoint. Guaranteed success in Europe because this supposed manager we employ is more tactically aware for Europe. Very, very thin. And they would need to though come though with like if you were going to go in that direction as someone with some sort of cast iron guarantee of domestic success. And I think Brendan would have appealed to the board. I'm not agreeing with Pato, I think. But Brendan maybe would have been the closest thing, shall we say, that the board would have looked at as someone who comes with a very, very strong chance of domestic success with potential European success. And I think that's, you know, potentially maybe do well in Europe. And I think that's what really the board's attitude to it all now is as well. They want to do well domestically and they've kind of given up at a European level. But I totally take your point. Shaq and Lennon produce more with less. Well, they did, and this takes me back to the point I was making. The manager's certainly not inexcusable right now, Brown Warrior. As I say, if he's not happy with the tools at his disposal, he was part of it. He's part of the fucking process. He said he was delighted with it. He knew what he was signing up to, and he was happy with that. If he's happy with that squad he's got, then woe betide him. This is the way it goes. Good luck, and we'll see how you get on in the Champions League, Brendan. This is what happens. Also, though, on the fact Strachan and Lennon produce more with less, Strachan and Lennon, two of the great things about them were, I don't think they gave two fucks about how their philosophy was showing up in Europe, and they weren't always. I think managers, one big difference with a manager now in modern football for me is they, like players, by the way, are very conscious of their brand, how they are coming across, what would damage their CV. Now, if they think, like Lenny, no years of graces, the 2-0 win against 2-1 win against Barcelona, where of course it's now famously dropped to like 1% possession. I know it wasn't that, but he didn't give two fucks. He didn't care about how much possession they had. He was willing to take that hit. That it wasn't a sexy win. It's not one that any prospective chairman are going to go. They might take notes of the result. In fact, some chairman might still be very, very much focused on a results-driven business. I think that's what it used to be. Football was called, but now it's like a philosophy-driven business. And if you look like you're moving away from your original ideologies, you then look like a weak manager. You're less sexy on the eye, I think, to potential new prospective chairman in the future, and they won't do it. They will stick to their guns, and I think the best philosophy in football is winning. I still do. And I think they were very much horses for courses, Strachan and Lenny, and not too bothered their arse about how it came over and looking. On the other side, I think now it's just common theme. That I dare say Brendan's no different than many other managers out there now, that they very much like to have their imprint always on the team, and don't like to be backing down from that in any way, shape or form, no matter what the opposition. There's also the funny thing, right, that both Brendan and Postecoglou, I think Brendan said it in his second spell. Postecoglou definitely said it. I'm sure Brendan said words to the effect, I'll paraphrase anyway, said something like, the reason we play this way is that we think we'll win. I believe we'll win more games than we won't by playing in a different way. But not in Europe, right? Because that's just not happening in Europe. It's quite obvious that the way we play in Europe, if we're 15 games out a win, it isn't working. It just doesn't work. You've not got the players to do it. And secondly, the actual style of that football, unless you've got real £20 million players that don't mind bad weather, then you're in trouble. Do you know what I mean? It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, where does the law of averages coming from that this type of football is going to produce better results more often than not? No, I think it should. I think it's insulting to the managers themselves that they're not capable of doing like a different type of tactic, a different type of formation, depending on who the opponent is. I think it's insulting to the players that we are incapable of coaching them to play a different type of football depending on the opposition we play. If they're all so one-dimensional now, managers, players alike, then don't tell me this is a better standard of football that we're watching than we've ever seen before. I'm sure many could put out many arguments that it is. But for me, it's quite insulting to a lot of them that there seems to be this sort of perceived lack of belief they would be able to do anything in one season different to what the original blueprint is of how they play. I just find that a bit mad, and I don't know why it seems to be like that. I would like to have seen a wee bit of more flexibility from all the recent managers in Europe, and more of a attitude of trying to play each game as it comes. But it's not that easy. I appreciate that, but certainly at times, the consistency we've got of bad results it is really poor. Brian McCabe comes in. Good to have you on, Brian. And 0% win rate in Champions League. Rodgers, 6%. Both with great performances, but lacking quality. Wakey. Now's the time for the board to reward the manager for next season. I mean, do you know what, though? It's such a double-edged sword, Brian, and thanks for the point you make there. It's such a double-edged sword because what the board now have in their locker as an argument is, well, we've seen how difficult it is. We've had two elite managers already, and you've seen how well Postecoglou's done in the English Premier League, but he's got a 0% win record. Rodgers is a 6. Was it really worth us going out and spending half of our pot of money if it's only going to increase that percentage a minimal amount and we'll still finish bottom of the group anyway? They've got answers for all of this now. They've got us tied up in knots. because it's not been called out, in my opinion, soon enough. Anyway, we will go in. We will leave the bus there. It's been 25 minutes of talking straight. It's 218 on. Can't thank you enough for doing that. But we will do a wee deeper dive on this. Likely tomorrow night, we'll do a wee special on the Champions League before we come back for the usual Thursday night forum on Thursday, funnily enough. Right, anyway, I'm out of here. See you, sir.